In a quaint neighborhood where life seemed to move at a leisurely pace, two sisters made their way to their cherished local café, Whispering Brews. This small establishment, nestled between a flower shop overflowing with vibrant blooms and an eclectic bookstore filled with the scent of old pages, was their refuge after a strenuous week. On this particularly crisp autumn afternoon, the air was punctuated by the enticing aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the soft hum of indie melodies that floated through the air. It was the perfect spot for Emily, the elder sister, to unwind while her younger sister Lily dove into the fantastical realms of her favorite novels. Lily, soft-spoken and gentle-natured, often found solace in the pages of her fantasy books, preferring to escape into the magical worlds they offered rather than confront the more chaotic realities of life. She was currently engrossed in a tale of heroic dragons and brave warriors. Her vanilla chai latte nestled in her hands, steam curling upwards from it like a whisper of comfort. Emily, on the other hand, was busy scrolling through her phone, savoring the warmth of her own coffee, when the bell above the cafe door jingled in a harsh, unwelcome manner, announcing the arrival of a newcomer. The woman who walked in was hard to ignore, with her strikingly extravagant appearance. Cropped blonde hair styled in a disheveled bob and oversized sunglasses perched on her nose. She carried a designer handbag that looked far too pretentious for the laid-back cafe vibe. The moment she stepped inside, her displeasure was palpable. Her eyes darted around the establishment with disdain, as if she were judging its very existence. "What is this sad soundtrack?" she exclaimed, her voice dripping with entitlement. "Can't you play something that doesn't make me want to cry?" She demanded attention, and the barista, a kind-hearted college student named Jamie, responded with a polite smile, explaining that the playlist was curated by the cafe's owner. This only earned him a scoff and a curt order for an oat milk latte, accompanied by a tone that implied she was paying for an insult rather than a drink. Emily, slightly miffed, tried to ignore the uproar, but couldn't help but notice how the woman, who would soon earn the unwelcome title of Karen, began surveying the cafe like a hawk searching for prey. It wasn't long before her beady eyes settled on Emily and Lily. Emily instinctively felt the prickle of a gaze weighing upon them. "What's wrong with her?" Karen's voice cut through the cozy atmosphere as she approached their table, arms crossed defiantly. Lily had remained blissfully unaware until now, her immersion into her book shattering like fragile glass at the sound of Karen's invasive inquiry. "Excuse me?" Lily stammered, glancing up with wide eyes while Emily's protective instincts flared up. "What's wrong with her? She looks, well, off," Karen continued, leaning closer, her expression a grotesque blend of judgment and disdain. "She's enjoying her book," Emily responded sharply, trying to mask her disgust and irritation while keeping her voice steady. "She's not bothering anyone." As if to assert her supposed superiority, Karen scoffed, dismissing Lily with a wave of her hand. "Well, maybe some of us are sensitive to certain energies." The way she spoke the word energies was almost comical, as if she believed it elevated her to some ultra-spiritual realm of authority. Moments later, the tension in the cafe reached a boiling point as two men who had been sitting quietly at a nearby table stood up. They bore an air of calm but commanding authority, suggesting that they were not just average patrons. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stop harassing these customers," one man said coolly, stepping forward. "And who are you?" Karen retorted, incredulity etched into her expression. "Detective Callahan, off duty but still within jurisdiction," he replied crisply, presenting his badge. He continued, "This young woman has been minding her own business. You've approached her, insulted her, and now you're disturbing everyone's peace. That's enough." Karen blinked like a startled animal, taken aback by the unexpected intervention. She fumbled for words, her bravado cracking under the scrutiny of the watching crowd, but her indignation refused to fade. Before she could retort, the other detective, a tall figure with a stoic demeanor, added, "Your response to your discomfort was to verbally assault a stranger in public. That is not how one handles being disturbed, ma'am." The barista nodded in agreement, and murmurs coursed through the patrons, many backing the detective's intervention. Yet Karen was far from finished. She turned to Emily and Lily again, her face morphing into one of pure aggression. Without warning, in a shocking display of rage, she flung her latte into the air, the scalding liquid arcing towards Lily. Time seemed to suspend as the audience gasped in horror. Lily's scream pierced the tense atmosphere as the hot liquid splattered across her shoulder and neck. Instinctively, Emily leapt from her chair, heart pounding as she rushed to Lily's side while the cafe erupted into chaos. Lily stumbled backward, shock and pain etched across her features, the warmth of the drink quickly morphing into a burning sensation. As Emily reached her, she could see the tears pooling in Lily's eyes, not just from the pain, but also from the humiliation of being victimized in an establishment that had always felt safe. "She's just," Emily began, her voice rising, when Detective Callahan interjected sharply, "That's assault. You're done here." Stunned, Karen stood frozen for a moment, clearly not grasping the severity of her actions. "It was just coffee," she exclaimed, but her self-righteousness was quickly being overshadowed by the reality of the situation. "You threw hot liquid at a minor," the second detective stated matter-of-factly, emotionless. "That constitutes attempted bodily harm. You are under arrest." At that moment, as the heat of the confrontation escalated, the cafe patrons realized that they were witnesses to a serious incident. The moment the detective pulled out the handcuffs, any remaining traces of Karen's bravado evaporated. Having realized her position was untenable, Karen's expression shifted from outrage to confused defeat. "You can't arrest me," she sputtered, her eyes darting around the room as if pleading for someone to rescue her. But instead of rescuing her, the bystanders only shook their heads in disbelief, the silence confirming her isolation. The officer directed her to take a seat along the wall, her hands cuffed behind her back, face flushed and rigid as she continued to protest. But the strength of her arguments faded as the muffled murmurs among the patrons revealed overwhelming disapproval. Meanwhile, Emily knelt beside Lily, who was still shaken, holding a cold compress against her neck where the hot drink had made contact. "You're okay," Emily soothed her while dabbing at Lily's skin gently with napkins. "You're safe now. She can't hurt you." Amidst the chaos, the paramedics arrived swiftly, quickly assessing Lily's condition with professionalism and care. They confirmed that her burns were serious but superficial, providing a cool compress and advising them to monitor her. "No hospital visit needed, but we'll be ready if she changes her mind," one of them assured Emily, completing a thorough examination. As they tended to Lily, detectives finished giving their statements to the responding officers, who showed up shortly after. Karen was still attempting to weave her defense, but her words reflected desperation rather than conviction. She offered excuses laden with nonsense about energy and an atmosphere of discomfort, yet none of it resonated. They were merely feeble attempts to dodge responsibility. The cafe manager approached Emily and Lily, offering a heartfelt apology for the morning's events, handing them 2 complimentary drinks, his anxiety palpable as he spoke. "I'm so sorry. We've never had anything like this happen here. We'll send all the security footage to the police." While Emily appreciated his concern, the adrenaline coursing through her veins was beginning to fade, leaving behind a mix of fatigue, rage, and incredulity at what had transpired. Even as they waited for the police to escort Karen out, she continued to complain, clearly taken aback by the reality of her actions. When the door swung closed behind her, the cafe felt markedly lighter, the lively chatter and background music slowly returning as people began to process what happened. Detective Callahan returned, checking on Emily and Lily, assuring them charges would be filed and that they'd be contacted to give formal statements. He handed Emily a card, offering help should they need anything in the future. In that moment, as Emily glanced over at Lily, who was still visibly shaken yet calming, she realized how much this experience had rattled her sister, who had endured an unjust invasion of her peaceful life. The sun had arched across the sky, casting elongated shadows as they walked back to their car, where Lily clutched the cooling compress to her neck, her eyes reflecting the confusion of both pain and bewilderment. Emily remained alert, hopeful that her sister would heal, physically and emotionally. The rest of the day unfolded slowly, with the sisters retreating to their home, trying to regain their sense of normalcy. But the scar of the incident still lingered in their minds, the heat and chaos replaying like a grim film. Emily kept Lily close, cooking her favorite dishes, encouraging her to drink water, hovering like a protective guardian without being too obvious. Hours turned into night, and finally, as Lily rested against the soft cushions of the couch beneath a warm blanket, she spoke softly, her voice cracking in the silence. "I didn't do anything wrong, did I?" Emily felt a deep ache in her chest at the evident fragility in her sister's tone. "No, you didn't," she assured, wrapping her arm around Lily's shoulders gently. "You were just reading, as you always do. No one understands the beauty in quietness. They often fear what they don't comprehend." Lily leaned into Emily slightly, and while the tears still brimmed in her eyes, there was a flicker of acknowledgement in her expression. The night deepened around them, a cocoon of comfort and safety, slowly restoring some of the confidence that had been shaken earlier. A few days later, the phone rang. The caller ID displayed the police precinct, and a sense of foreboding washed over Emily as she answered. Detective Callahan's voice was steady as he informed her that they were proceeding with formal charges against Karen, which reassured them both, if only a little. It was an acknowledgement that their ordeal was taken seriously, a signal that justice still stood on the side of those wronged. They were to return to the station to provide their statements, an opportunity to recount the events with clarity and conviction. The process was a step towards reclaiming their narrative, and when they met with the detective, the act of corroborating their stories reaffirmed for both sisters the importance of being heard. In that sterile, sunless room, while they waited for their turn to speak, Emily watched as Lily shifted in her seat. Gone was her anxious fidgeting. Instead, her demeanor blossomed with an understated resilience. The details spilled out from Lily's lips in a clear, unwavering narration of events, not dramatized, merely the truth. A cathartic release. Long after they returned home, both sisters sensed a shift within themselves. It wasn't merely about the outcome of the case, it was the acknowledgement of their experience, of enduring through another's cruelty, and still emerging intact. As more days turned into weeks and time moved forward, the memories of that fateful incident began to blur slightly, fading, yet not forgotten. Karen's actions echoed through their lives like a distant rumble, the very thought of her becoming a mere footnote, someone who had tried and failed to extinguish the light that was Lily's spirit. Everything came to a head when, at last, they found themselves back in the courthouse. Emily noticed the change in the atmosphere, a vibrant energy of both anxiety and anticipation, tinged with resolute confidence. Lily sat taller, poised. The lingering traces of pain remained, yet they were accompanied by newfound strength. This time, while waiting for the judge, Lily whispered, "I feel different." The courtroom opened with a quiet authority, unveiling both witnesses of despair and symbols of resilience. When Karen walked in, she wore her guilt like a heavy cloak, the weight of her previous bravado now replaced with unease. Upon the judge's entrance, the clattering silence settled into the room. Each word of the charges levied against Karen echoed like a judgment, not just of her actions, but of the state of humanity itself. An acknowledgement of kindness versus cruelty, of courage against intimidation. As the proceedings unfolded, the prosecuting attorney laid out clear evidence, consistent witness statements, the devastating impact of the attack, underscoring the vulnerability of those gentle souls like Lily. The judge listened, wrote notes, and observed closely, noting the quiet strength of the victims. When it was Emily's and Lily's turn, each word weighed heavy with meaning. The testimony reflected not only a recounting of events, but a restoration of dignity. They were met with distant glances and deflated confidence on Karen's part, revealing her defensiveness against the truth being laid bare. After careful consideration, the judge delivered the verdict, acknowledging not only Karen's actions, but also the unforeseen emotional toll inflicted upon Lily. Among the repercussions was mandated therapy, a requirement Karen would soon dread, matched only by the fines she was ordered to pay both the state and Lily. Emerging from those solemn walls, the weight of helplessness lifted, replaced by a sense of justice that wasn't merely punitive, but restorative. As they left the courthouse, the soft glow of the midday sun enveloped Emily and Lily anew, a sign that their path to healing was drawing nearer. The rest of that week brought about gentler days. Lily transitioned back into her routine, a sense of newfound confidence embedded in her every action. The burn on her neck faded, but the renewed softness in her demeanor spoke volumes. Softness with layers of resilience that could no longer be invaded by the likes of someone such as Karen. In the end, the sisters returned to the café where the incident had transpired. They stepped through the door, arms linked, the memories both haunting and strengthening. They settled into their favorite nook, the light filtering through the space filled with laughter, conversations, and warmth. The world may never fully comprehend the beauty of those who possess quiet courage, but together they sang a new song, one of justice, dignity, and an unwavering belief in the gentle strength of existence. In the days that followed, Emily felt a sense of closure, knowing that their journey didn't have to end in bitterness. The tumultuous path they'd traveled had birthed an unbreakable bond. Though the experiences of the past would leave imprints upon their souls, they were determined to move forward, together, embracing each day as a new beginning. In that quaint café, amidst tranquil conversations and the clinking of coffee cups, they found their sanctuary once more. The weight of the world felt a shade lighter as they toasted to the moments that made them who they were, a celebration of survival, strength, and the quiet yet powerful resilience of spirits that refuse to be silenced.